So what if you're trapped in love and you can't really put your finger on what's wrong, but you know something's wrong, but you can't find it in you to do something about it because you're so in love. And what you're thinking changes as your story concludes. Like it takes a whole 180-degree shift. Hi everyone, I'm Penman and I talk about books. So I recently decided to go on a mission, and that was to reread all the classics that I read when I was in my O levels. So, you know how you have this nostalgia factor associated with certain stories, certain books, and then certain movies, and then you go back to watching them again once you're old and you're like, why did I like this? And you just ruin that nostalgia, that childlike wonder for you as well. So that is what I decided to do now. Like, reread all of the books that I enjoyed reading as a child and then decide whether I like it or not. Slippery slope. But oh well. So my cousin Rachel is one of the books that I absolutely enjoyed reading when I was 15. And I wanted to see how my views about that book has changed 15 years later. So I decided to do this review in two parts. One, what the 15-year-old penguin thought, and two, what the 30-year-old penguin thought. So, just to see how those views have changed. Let's go through the story first. If you want to read it, you can skip this part and go to, and if you don't want to read it, then, stay and listen to me, yeah. Anyways, so the story is about this extremely rich English man called Ambrose, who inherited a lot of wealth because he belonged to a very rich family. He has this cousin Philip who became an orphan because both his parents died in a tragic accident. So Ambrose decided to adopt Philip, and Ambrose is the sort of person who's like, women are a troublemaker and my life would be ruined if I had a woman in it, so women bad. And those are the sort of beliefs that he sort of instills in Philip as well. So they are living this perfect bachelor life, and no women, nobody to tell you where to put your shoes, or where to smoke or where to read and stuff like that. So what happens is that Ambrose is sick, and the doctor suggests to him that he cannot spend winters in England because of the cold climates. So during this time, like during the winter season, he should move towards a warmer climate. So every winter, Ambrose decides to go towards the warmer European climates. During one of these years, he goes to Italy and he writes to Philip telling him about meeting their cousin Rachel. And he is smitten by her. And Philip doesn't really like it because he's like, why? I don't like it. Obviously, because Philip is also jealous because, Ambrose is his entire family. A few months down the lane, Ambrose tells Philip that he's marrying. He and Rachel got married, and he's so happy, he's so excited, and Philip hates it. Philip is feeling like that neglected older child, that. Anyways, and then Ambrose stops sending letters, which kind of freaks Philip out. Now what happens is that after a very long time, Ambrose sends Philip a letter, and the letter is like completely opposite of what he was sending. At first, his letters used to be like, oh, Rachel is so great, Rachel is so that, I can't wait for you to meet Rachel. And then they turn more towards, oh, I hate Rachel, Rachel is like the worst thing that has happened to me, I'm stuff like that. Now Philip, who is already very, very jealous of Rachel, is like, oh, my father-like figure needs me, I need to go, I will convince him, stuff like that. So Philip decides to go to Italy. What happens is that when he gets to Italy, he finds out that Ambrose died. Turns out that Ambrose had a disease that kind of ran in his family, which was more like a brain tumor, and he didn't survive. And before he could reach Ambrose, he died, and Rachel did the burial and everything, and Rachel isn't there anymore. Now, Philip, who already hates Rachel, just finds out that his father like figure passed away, and the last things that he has gotten from him were these very troubling letters. Now, obviously, any sane, jealous person would come to the conclusion that Rachel is the most evilest person on the planet. Naturally. So turns out Philip goes back, Philip inherits. So the weird thing is, Philip inherits everything. Ambrose has left nothing for his wife in his will. Which is good for Philip, but like it's still weird. You marry this person, you left her nothing. Anyways, so Philip goes back, Philip talks to his godfather. His godfather's like, as per your cousin's will, you will have all the estate when you turn 25. He's not yet 25. So he's like, you will get the estate then. Till then, I am your legal guardian. And it's like, I think a few months before he turns 25. He's like, oh yeah, well, whatever. And he's like, oh, your cousin Rachel is also in England, so I think you'd better invite her. And he's like, this is his chance to take revenge. He's going to, invite her and humiliate her and everything. Okay. So he invites Rachel, and Rachel comes. Now, before Rachel, he hasn't met Rachel. He doesn't know what she looks like. So in his head, Rachel is this very evil stepmom sort of figure, so to say, like Miss Trunchbull. And then the first time he sees Rachel, he is absolutely smitten by her. She's very beautiful, she's very elegant, and she also has that element of I'm not loving a girl. So he also sees that, like, oh, she's not fussy, she's very plain, she's not, creating issues like other girls would. So she had that element as well. As the story progresses, we see how Philip slowly becomes very infatuated with Rachel. Notice how I'm using the word infatuated. So Philip becomes very infatuated with Rachel to a point where he gives all the estate, everything to Rachel once he turns 25, because he feels like Rachel is supposed to have everything but she didn't. So I will make everything correct. During all of this time, he starts to find it weird that after he gave everything to Rachel, Rachel's behavior changed and she wants to move back to Italy. And he feels like sort of backstabbed. He feels like Rachel sort of did all of this just to get the money. And he's feeling betrayed as well. The story ends with him talking to his friend about outing Rachel. He thinks he has evidence, but it's in Italian. He asks his friends to translate it. And turns out once that is translated, it wasn't anything. In the meanwhile, an accident happens and Rachel dies. The last thing Rachel says is Ambrose's name. And that is where the story ends. Now, 15-year-old Penguin was like, Rachel was so mean, she was leading Philip on. This was like, Rachel was the bad person. And like in the end, I thought maybe because she was like, she did something so bad, that is why before dying she saw Ambrose's face, because like she did him dirty. And that is why her dying words were Ambrose. Now that I've read it now, I feel like Rachel was such a smart woman. And like as a woman in this society, I kind of related more to Rachel. Because one, Rachel was already divorced. Two, her second husband also died of a disease. So naturally, even in this society, people would automatically be like, oh, you're the cursed person. And that is very common in our society. We hear things like, oh, this person got married to that person and that person brought them bad luck, so that is how it is. It's a very common notion, especially in Pakistan and India and this part of the world. So that was something that I even today I see. The second thing is how it talks about although it talks about how a woman's jealousy is different than a man's jealousy, but I feel like Daphne, when she was writing this, was intending it to be much more deeper than this just jealousy. Because just talking about jealousy, she talks about how men in general have a very childlike reactions to everything. They're very abrupt. They don't think before they act. They're always very spontaneous. While women, they have to think, they have to measure, they have to weigh before they react to any situation, because everything they can say or do will be held against them. Even if they don't say anything, that will be held against them as well. So I feel like in just that one sentence, Daphne explained how the society treats men and women differently, and this is the reason why women and men uh, think differently to similar situations. It also talks about how men are very easily infatuated, no matter what age, but Rachel herself, she had to be smart about it. So she had to be smart about the fact that Philip had gotten infatuated with her, but she couldn't lead him on. But he was like in the stage where he was acting very frantic, so she had to be careful about that as well. She was in an unknown place, she did not have a lot of friends, so she had to be careful about what was said, how she conducted herself, and everything. There came a point where Philip was being very frantic and he tried to, hit her as well. At which point she was scared for her safety and she got another woman to live with them because she was scared of being alone with this person. And I can think of so many different cases where women have felt unsafe in their own home with their own family because of how erratic men tend to behave. Now, I don't mean to generalize men in general, but I'm just talking about enough men to, do that. In the end, it wasn't, it was some of the things that Rachel did seem questionable, as to maybe she was just after the money. But I also felt like she was being very smart about her decisions. She couldn't be erratic about it. She couldn't outright say to Philip that, oh, you're being weird. Because he would have reacted in a way that might have done him harm and might have made her look bad, because by the end of the day, she was the widow of her guardian, so to say. But the really good thing that I really liked about this book was how my perception changed from a 15-year-old teenager to who was relating more with Philip to this 30-year-old woman who's relating more with the decisions that were made by Rachel, who, by the way, was only 35 when all of this happened. So that is just, she was very smart. I mean, she was only 5 years older than me and she was like making such smart decisions. Oh my god. And like, the thing is that everybody was mourning their losses, but like nobody stopped to think that this woman had a very tragic past. She had a tragic childhood. She found this person who, by the end of his life, was blaming her. She was not happy in her marriage, the second marriage. Her husband passed away tragically, and she was all alone again. She had no other family, and the one person that he considered family turns out to be infatuated by her, so now she has to navigate that very smartly. So yeah, this was all for my yapping. I mean, if you want me to yap more and you want me to listen to yap more, like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what other classic book do you want me to read and dissect.